So. All right, well, you got the recording going. So
I believe so. Let me double check.
welcome. Okay, so we wanted to do like a workshopping kind of session here at the Southeastern conference. So welcome to best practices for ILL. We a lot of times talk about the same topics a lot because what we're at OCLC really trying to do is to get people to utilize automation to get to unmediated requesting, because if you don't touch every single item, you're gonna free up time for other more value added activities. So you get those simple book requests coming through, or article requests where it's very clear what the thing is that's being requested. We want those to go through the system in a accurate way, but doesn't necessarily mean that a human has to actually review them and touch them. So that's kind of what a lot of our recommendations are around. So this is actually a checklist that we put together for Northwest ILL last year, not this year. And when I initially submitted this session, I thought it was only going to be 30 or 40 minutes. But when I found out that they gave me an extended concurrent session, all of a sudden we have more time to cover more topics if you guys want to. So what I'd like to do is use this. I have slides for all of these 10 sort of ideas for how to optimize your services, but we don't have to cover all 10 of those. We can focus on, or at least focus first on some of the ones that are most important to you. So that's kind of my thought of the day. Now, what was I thinking when I put my slides together? Okay, so this is a good place to start, actually. What just raise a hands in the room who is using just WorldShare ILL without Tipasa or ILLiad. Your WorldShare ILL? Okay. 2 WorldShare ILL. Who has Tipasa? 3. Got our friend here. She has Clio and WorldShare ILL, right? Yes. Okay. So we don't have any ILLiad users in here. Just you. Convener. She has to be a troublemaker. Okay, but she's already been through all the tune-ups and everything, so we're gonna focus on WorldShare ILL and Tipasa, which is easier for me actually. Oh, and then we also have the newest of our product offerings is resource sharing for groups. Like someone referred to it earlier as OCLC for groups. It's our group product, and that is the consortial borrowing system. So Mary can help me out. I know the Big Ten Academic Association, it was like our first big user of OCLC resource sharing for groups. So it's being adopted by like larger academic institutions, but also who else have we, do you know? Okay, that's fine. There are some different groups that are preparing to start using it, but I don't know if like the press releases have gone out or anything. So, but like think of the big,
there's one more, but
the Big Ten academics.
Mr. 16.
Yeah,
Yes,
Mr.
it's
16.
more than 10.
Yes, they are our research sharing for groups. So we won't talk much about them. They do have very similar functionality to, I'll say Tipasa for the most part. But it's more about concentric rings. And I think we haven't talked about it in those terms here, but everybody's got kind of like the people that you borrow from first. So you might have an Alma group, like you might have your small group of people that you borrow with, and as you get bigger. So that's what resource sharing for groups is it lets the consortia, you start with the consortial borrowing and go out from there as needed. So that's what resource sharing for groups is sort of about. But okay, so back to, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew like OCLC has several different products that you could be using. So what we try to do with this list of 10 things is to try to think of things that are applicable no matter if you're like a low volume or high volume ILL department. If you're public or you're academic, is everyone in here academic? Do we have any publics? Okay, academic, that makes it easier.
I work at the state.
Okay,
I help public libraries, so I'm
okay,
not in public libraries, but I do work with.
okay. So if I'm saying anything that's like too academic focused, like
I'll let you know.
slow me down. Or if you have a, the public angle, if you want to talk about that, we can flip over to talk about that. Okay, and then, yeah, and then whether you're new to ILL or you've been doing it for a lot of years. And I think there's people that have been doing it for a lot of years, but have switched systems recently or switched institutions. So, and then, okay. And so basically this checklist, and you don't have to fill it all out today, but it just gives you some ideas of where you might be able to improve your ILL service. So you might say today, you're operating at a 4 or a 5, but maybe you can get some tips to move yourself up to like an 8 or a 9. And then overall, your goal is to get yourself to a 100. I don't know if a library will ever be at 100, but I wanted
Especially
to,
the first one.
but I wanted it to kind of like start out as a continuum for you. So you can move yourself along. And some of them are easy, like contribute to the resource sharing community. Sophia, like conferences and things like that. So you can be a 10 in that area. Easy bonus. So, okay. So we're going to talk about, and people have brought this up. A lot of these things have been talked about at the conference already. I think a couple of times, holdings have come up and the accuracy of your holdings is how, if you think about it from a very basic standpoint, how can other people know what you have if your holdings are not up to date? And I know a lot of people in this room don't have any control over that, but you can let your colleagues in cataloging or whoever is controlling, e-resources, controlling your holdings, that the importance of it for ILL, because obviously that's like one of the first things. So that's why we have it first on the list here. Something that you can be working on in parallel with your library colleagues while working on some of these other things. So number 2 is policies. And that's being just very clear in the OCLC policies directory, what you'll lend, what you won't lend. Maybe putting your hours. I noticed when I go into the policies directory that quite frequently people haven't filled out their normal operating hours. You want to make sure you're utilizing deflections correctly, those kinds of things. So that section, we can talk about that. In our, so 3 and 4, we talk about a lot in my product team. We want to be able to put you in a position where you can say no quickly to requests or say yes quickly to requests, because that's going to speed the overall turnaround time on the network. So how can you get yourself to know faster or yes faster? And getting yourself to know sounds kind of backwards, but as soon as you say no, that thing can go to my next lender. It's not just sitting there waiting. Let the system process standard borrowing requests. So that's what I was talking about earlier when we created part of the requesting. And there's a lot to that. Well, when you're doing that, you have to have your custom holdings up to date or something like that. Your policies, your constant data. So when we're talking about letting the system process the standard request, it's based on what you tell the system your custom holdings are. So who am I supposed to go? Who is the system supposed to check with first as it's looking for lenders? And then also you want it to automatically apply to constant data. So if you try to get everything for free, an example would be that you would want in your constant data that's being applied by the automation to say, I'm looking at Sophia over here. Atlas and OCLC was not her friend in this area. You want to make sure that that your max cost is 0, and then that way that makes everybody more comfortable with the automation. You know that you're not going to rack up big costs by doing that. And then just utilizing the tools. So 6 and 7 and 8 are all tools for streamlining your workflows. So hopefully everyone's heard of Article Exchange, really Treaties and Article Exchange. And IFM, so team management. And so, and then. And 8 is basically, we're talking about circulation integration, if that's an option for your library. You have a slide in here, of which integrations would actually support currently. And yeah, monitor for improvements. So that's gonna be about using your statistics for opportunities to do things better. And then, like I said, contributing to the community. I give everyone bonus points for helping with conferences and doing presentations and yeah, just sharing your knowledge and your success stories. All right, so I put the stickies around if you want to jot down questions for me that you want to make sure I answer. So if you don't feel like just jot it down and you pass them over to Sophia and
Read them, or you can just
or you could just
it's a small group of people. It probably is easier if you ask your question.
Some people don't like to interrupt, so it's there if you want to use it. Or if we want to capture ideas for later, or if there's things that I can't answer, you want to make sure that I get back with you on, it would be great to write them down on this. I found those big stickies in my drawer file cabinet. I used them for some exercise pre-COVID, I'm sure. And I was like, oh, these are awesome stickies, so I'm going to bring them to the conference. So, okay, so any particular section, okay, maybe we'll do like raise of hands. Who wants to talk about holding? Let's make sure I cover holdings, like we can rank them if there's any sections I want to skip. Okay, I don't have my pen handy. So we got 1 vote for holdings. Anybody else want to go over holdings? I can go through it real quickly because I'm not an expert in that area. And if you already done 1. And then lending policies and policy directory. That's something that you guys are familiar with. Not familiar.
I'll put 2 here because I want to hear again.
Okay, sure. And then, and this will just help me know how quickly to go through this stuff. Okay, and then saying no quickly. So that has to do with real-time availability and questions. So at the end of this morning, talked about real-time availability and what it did for them. She probably talked about it better than I will. So, and then anybody want to do getting to know more quickly? Great. 1,
2. Oh, and she raised
2, 3.
and
All right.
okay.
You got 3 for the no.
Oh,
And
sorry.
then getting to yes has to do with lending automation, which is only for Tipasa or Express program. Does anybody know if they're at Express during inspection? If you don't know, I can look it up for you later.
Oh,
We're not. So does everybody know what the Express program is? Okay, then we talked about it a little bit in that. You can look it up.
I can look up Tuesday and Express if you're not sure.
And then, okay, I'm getting to yes.
oh, wait, for the yes.
Yes, number 4. Express and lending management. I'll go through that one quickly. Automation. So the number 5 is about automations. How are we doing it? Anyway, who has set up automations? Or doesn't know? We'll talk about that one for sure. And article exchange, everybody seems, is article exchange pretty easy? Are you using her? Yeah, you are, because she's in the process theoretically article. In IFM, anybody need information on IFM or is that pretty straightforward? It's been around for so long, but I find that still we have to remind people to use it. So don't send invoices.
Oh, really? Because I still get emails about invoices.
Invoices.
Okay, I probably don't know about it.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Well, your leverage gets like that.
Okay.
I mean, we take all of your invoices and let's go put them all together.
Oh,
Send you a bill once a month.
So when I say don't invoice, it's if you tell other libraries that you prefer IFM or you'll only take IFM, then they won't send you an invoice to like write them a check.
You'd rather the invoices from individual libraries.
Well, they ask us for, like, they asked me to send them.
Okay. So that might be an opportunity for you to use IFM more often than.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll, yeah, and we may have to deep dive on that one a little, or we can look at your settings, yeah, and we're gonna visit you guys. Or
We're gonna talk in the
virtually.
morning.
We're
8
gonna,
a.m.
we're gonna talk tomorrow, and then we also have we may also have a virtual meeting later too. Sure. Oh, okay. And, okay, so I asked about Tipasa and WorldShare ILL and ILLiad, but what ILS, what library systems are you guys using? Cersei,
Symphony.
Where are you? Cumberland University. Cumberland University in Tennessee. Yes, in London. She's part of the ACA, Appalachian College Association. Okay. I think we're looking into it, but we're not.
Okay, so Cersei and
WMS.
WMS. WMS, Cleo. I don't know Cleo, I'm like, I've run into it, strange things, it's not very, they love it, so of course. Where are you?
At Rhodes College. In Rhodes. Oh.
Okay, and
I'm Alma.
Alma.
There's multiple ones for our libraries.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because
Yeah,
you're
support
support
system. Yeah.
system.
Yeah, because we've got,
I'll show you
so many little
the.
bit of.
Okay, good. Great. Studies, that was. Sierra.
We are a Sierra library, just ignore it. Just don't talk about it.
Okay, so I'm probably gonna just kind of fly through some of this stuff and just stop me if I go too fast or if you want to ask a question about anything in particular. This is just the stuff. I will say on the back side, the side that I tried to show you first, see everything that's underlined there is hyperlinked. So if you go to the electronic version of this, go to oc.lc/ILO scorecard. This is when I was saying, like, if you want to move yourself on the continuum for a particular place, this is where you can get more information about how to do that. So I'll talk about some of this stuff, but really it's going to be laid out better at those links.
Could you send us the slides so we can upload them also on the, yeah, perfect, thank you.
Yeah. These will be, I think those will be hyperlinked in the slides as well. But that's why I put the short URL, because this thing is just out as a PDF on our website. Okay, so holdings. I don't have a whole lot to say more about holdings than what I said earlier, just that it's the foundation of being able to.
Make sure everyone knows that Streamline Holdings update.
Oh, yeah, I do have a slide on that. Sorry.
You do, okay.
Yeah. So, but in terms of the importance of it, like, yeah. So it's got to be, if people don't know what you have, then it, that's a problem. So, and because there's, 10,000 plus libraries on the network, again, like knowing specifically what your library holds is really important. So holdings let everyone know what you can lend, send, or supply as a copy. And they can really impact how many requests you're getting. And I've seen that before with when we were talking about like, well, I'm jumping ahead to the knowledge base, but like if people don't know that you have some, or well, if the system doesn't know that you have it, then you can't get a request for it. So when you get those holdings straightened out, you're gonna get more lending requests. And this is what Mary was getting to. We offer a one-time, and I say we, it's not me, it's another department, OCLC. OCLC will do a free update. So most of you, I hope you all have cataloging subscriptions because that's what's going to enable you to get your ILL requests. It's all part of other libraries being able to request things from you. So write down, or like Sophia said, you'll get the slides on the conference site later. You can request that there. So it may not be your role in the library, holdings, but you can work with your cataloging team to do that.
I'm sorry, this form doesn't commit you to doing it. You fill it out, they do a little meeting with you, we go over it with you, then you decide if you want to move forward. And we actually loosened up, you can do it like maybe yearly, we're not doing just.
Oh, it's not, when they first rolled it out, it was one
That's
time.
true, but we decided it's
Awesome, that's awesome.
very helpful for everyone.
And I'm so sorry that I would interrupt you, but I think that it's very important to tell you something. You mentioned that, yes, we don't do it in ILL, that's correct. But I originated this in my library because I told them, this is what OCLC is doing, it's free. Let's talk about it. And Bridget jumped on board immediately, Tiffany and Bridget. And then, so there is a portion that the ILL person controls. And that portion is informing the people.
Yes.
And be very persistent in that, because maybe you don't know who to ask. So if you don't know, just ask the broader library director person or somebody that you have connected. But don't think that because it doesn't fall under you, you shouldn't be pursuing that at all.
Yeah.
It really made a difference for us.
Yeah, and if you're trying to show value that you're providing to the library, you absolutely need to keep pushing, like you said. Yeah,
And you did it very easily for us. Like
I did it. No, I'm just
whatever.
kidding.
I
I wish.
one
wish.
team. Yes, it was a very quick. On our side, and then it came with what we have to fix, and Tiffany is working on our cataloging library is working on finalizing the thing. They're jumping on another one for the journal.
So did you have another question?
Yes. Does it give you a list of the holdings that are incorrect? Is that what this is, or is it more like? Because the thing is, like, we moved from Millennium to our WMS, and something went wonky, so we have like either two holdings, one with the LH that doesn't have anything, and then we have it cataloged, or we'll have like a ghost, what we call a ghost record, where it doesn't have any connections. So that's what we're trying to do instead of us going from book to book.
Do you want to answer that, or you want me to answer that?
It's a little different for you guys who are WMS, because a lot of times streamline holding is your ILS more correct, or your WorldCat holding is more correct, but in the WMS world, that's all one thing, right? So if you went to WMS and you've got issues with data, are you working with the implementation team to figure out why?
Not yet. We're kind of like scooting it underneath because we're doing a huge right sizing project.
So you're doing a lot of
But I was like, is there an easier way to just like find those books and then take them out so we're not having to like, oh, where is this book? Why is it not here? To find out this record.
So I don't, Mary.
So yeah, if you're, I would work with your implementation person on figuring out what's happened, and we can help you, hopefully, figure out what those are.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. But I will say a normal update would be, it will look for matches between what we have and and then it'll add if things are missing, and then it'll remove what's but you're not exactly typical because you're going to WMS.
Things are deleted in your iOS and not in the WorldCat.
Yeah, and then once you're in WMS, you should never have to worry about it, right? Like
it's all one thing, right?
Yeah, it's all one. So okay. All right. Yes, thanks for asking that. All right. And then when we're talking about the electronic side of things, we have the knowledge base integration. And so this is really important for ILL. So we want to get as many libraries as possible to have their collections and their electronic holdings in the knowledge base, because when that's the case, they will surface in your ILL software, your ILL page, as something that you have. So it's particularly helpful. So when you're trying to pick lenders, you hope that the other people have their knowledge base stuff up to date. But when you are the lender, it's going to help you quickly realize that you have that particular article or not. And it's also all of this knowledge base information is really important when it comes to, and we'll talk about smart lender strings more, but when the system is trying to help you get to the lenders that are most likely to fill stuff for you, that's also where the knowledge base is very important. And Mary knows more about this than I do, but you use the collection manager software to update this. Sometimes it's your electronic resources manager, but I have also known ILL resource sharing people to update these collections in the collection manager. It is included with your cataloging subscription, correct? And so that short URL gets you to a request form to ask for this to be enabled. So if you have cataloging already and you don't have this enabled, it's a no-brainer. You just say, enable this for us. And then you get the ability to add collections. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday with another library. You don't have to add all of your collections at once, but the ones that you know you have interlibrary loan rights for, and that's another topic that I didn't really plan on talking about today, but when you're negotiating your licenses, you want to definitely be asking to if ILL rights can be included. And again, that's something that you might not be directly involved in, but like Sophia was saying, like you, as an ILL person, you want to be going to your electronic resources team or whoever is negotiating those licenses and make sure that they're considering ILL when in those negotiations. Some publishers, all you have to do is ask and they'll put it in. Other ones, they may have to badger. It just depends. So, but that's another thing that ILL people can do to make ultimately their own lives easier, because the more collections that you have ILL rights for, and then you're able to go into the collection manager and mark those specific collections as I am able to loan from this collection, then you can see in your request details right there, do I have ILL rights or do I not have ILL rights? And I think I've got some examples of what it looks like. And there's also a place where you can put notes if there's like specific terms or specific things that you have to do in order to lend those items. So let's see. Yeah, so here's an example in WorldShare ILL or Tipasa where this collection has been added to the knowledge base. And it'll always say ILL okay, and then you'll have a yes or a no here. And that's just a check box in the collection manager. When they're adding the collection to the knowledge base, can you have ILL? And then they utilize here the note about if there were any stipulations about that. This is in the lender view. And let's see what I've got. And I've got ILLiad here, but since Sophia is the only ILLiad, but there's a way to surface those in that.
Yeah, and for me, this complex, even though we don't have, for some collections, it shows me a link and you can click and get it. But I do want to, I have a little bit of resistance in my library turning it on because it gives the e-resources librarian an additional thing that has to update. So my question to you is, since Karen now has turned, are they related, the Choreo and this project that you have? So, or not?
Oh. Are you?
Or not in space? You,
Right. So are you familiar with Choreo Insights?
sorry.
All right.
It's all right. It's another product that I wasn't talking about. Yeah.
But they are
Go
somewhat
for it.
connected. No? I mean, they could be connected.
Choreo takes a slice of your holdings. And
Okay,
compares it to another library.
okay.
Or
then
a
never
group
mind.
of libraries, or an authoritative list like Choice.
But does it tell you what we have also?
It can, you can get a list of what you have, that's.
And can that list be transferred into the knowledge base? In a certain regular time? No?
Well, I mean, a knowledge base is.
Yeah, it's like
information about what you have
yeah,
electronic
yeah,
resources.
yeah,
So if you have
yeah.
a package, right, you just check the package,
I know.
yeah.
So yeah, I've got some slides at the end, hidden at the end about how you would actually set this up. And we've got help for this, but I think today just kind of like getting these ideas down as things that you may want to investigate when you get back to your library, or reach out to OCLC for more information. But hopefully, yeah.
She's amazing. I know.
Leanna. Yes, so in here I have quotes from happy people and success stories. So Leanna was very happy with getting that all working efficiently. So. And if anyone wants to be part of a member success story, let us know, because our marketing folks are always looking for good stories. Okay, so communicating your policies. This is something like one of the first things when you're setting up your system is to make sure your policies are super duper clear. But if you're new or you inherited your system, you may or may not really know why or what it says in the policies directory. And well, I find a lot of people are afraid to change things. So what I just have a few tips. Make sure, so you'll want to, this is just about your lending policies in general. So, you know, what are the things that you will supply via copies? What are the things you'll supply via loans? And if you are in Elvis, and I think we talked about Elvis this morning, I don't know if everybody was in our session, but that's libraries very interested in sharing, who, if you know, they will supply to you for free if you'll supply to them for free. You can join that group. I actually pretty much maintain that group. So anybody that wants to join Elvis, I'm probably the one that's going to do that. But what I always say, if you're going to reciprocate with other libraries that will also lend to you for free, make sure you have like a note here that says I will reciprocate. If you don't have it in your policy here directly, you can put it in the notes, like I'll reciprocate with Elvis, just to make it extra clear to people so that like if they go to look at your policies that they can quickly see. I mean, they should be able to see on the request that you're part of that group, but I just find it like extra super duper clear if you put it in the policies. The other thing that I recommend, if you're just taking over, or maybe you've been maintaining this for a while, in that note field, like go ahead and put your initials or your name and the date that you updated that policy. That way, when someone else from your library or someone inherits this from you, they will know like whose policy that was, who set it up. Yeah, so always utilize your note fields to help you know the last time you reviewed that or changed it. Any questions about policies? This is information only. So it's really confusing in the policies directory, and I'm not showing the whole screen here, but if you remember, there's lots of tabs across the top, and this one is on the policies tab. Policies tab has both deflections and policies. Deflections actually do things. Deflections actually, when you write those rules, the system pays attention to them and enforces those. So if you say, I do not lend AV, it will ensure that you do not get requests with AV formatted items. But a policy, which is lower on the page below the deflections, the system doesn't utilize those. This is just information for other libraries to be able to read and review and see kind of what kind of a library you are and what you'll lend and how you prefer to receive your requests. Billing, IFM, no invoices. Sometimes people put like no invoices. So. So, Elvis, I was just talking about that. Still this slide from an Illinois. Yeah, we don't care that there's 295 in Illinois. That's funny. Okay, so yes. So OCLC took this over last in calendar 2023. We had a advisory group and we met a few times and clarified all the policies. So if you go to oc.lc/LVIS, that's the updated policies. With Elvis, we've been trying to get more international participation. So for copies, we have libraries in Australia and a few in Europe, and they will supply copies for free, but in their policies, they should be very clear to say that they're not going to lend loan for free, because if you wanted to get something from them, they're going to need you to probably pay shipping or something like that. But so Elvis, I think going forward is going to be very important for automated, unmediated lending of copies, because it's more and more where, you know, if a patron request comes in the evening, it'd be really, really nice if somebody in Australia supplies it so that like it's already been filled before you get up in the morning and even had a chance to look at that request. So we're really working with international libraries to get them added to Elvis for copies in particular. So keep your holdings up to date, communicate. This was a thing when we were updating the Elvis policies that we discussed and talked through with the advisory group. And we landed on everybody should be able to participate in Elvis. Just be very clear if there's certain collections, or if you're not going to loan a physical item outside the US, like just say that in your policies. And yeah, just a recommendation. This is not just an Elvis specific thing, but if you're ever going to be out of the office and you're the only person processing requests, make sure you switch your supplier status off so that things aren't sitting with your library while you're gone. And I think they wanted that to be part of, you know, that it's okay. Basically, that was, it's okay to go non-supplier. Just because you're Elvis and you say you're going to supply for free doesn't mean you got to be there every day of the year to supply things. All right. I'm not going to harp on this other than if you've, when you have staffing changes, make sure you update your team information. And days to respond. This is also something, and that came up earlier. I forget, Ashley was talking about it earlier. That you set your days to respond in the policies directory to give other libraries an idea of what's the longest amount of time you're going to need to fill that request. And people see this when they're picking libraries. If you're going to manually look at lender strings, and people get kind of like weirded out, like that says it's going to take 8 days or that's going to take 16 days. It's like that is set by the library, and so that's just informational. It has nothing to do with how quickly that request is actually going to turn around. And when we get to talking about automations and unmediated requesting and the express program, we utilize the real turnaround times for those libraries. So it's possible that somebody set their thing at 8 days to respond 25 years ago, and no one ever went in and updated it. But in reality, we look at their turnaround times and we know that they turn it around in 16 hours. That's when we're talking about automations and how when we get to that, how we create the smart lender strings, we use the real data, not this days to respond. So I almost would like to get rid of days to respond in here because it really confuses people. But there's a little bit reasons for it. So all I usually recommend to people is check that number, make sure it's accurate, you know, that it reflects your current situation. And some libraries do need to set that higher because they have multiple campuses and it can take a couple of days to get things to fill them. And that's a perfectly valid reason to have it set at like 4 or maybe 8. But most libraries turn their stuff around pretty quickly these days. So just go ahead and set it at what you want your service level to be. All right. Hours of availability. Okay. All right. Saying no quickly. All right. Just who knows that they have real-time availability or not. So yes.
I have it.
Yes. Okay. So everybody with WMS, you can raise your hands because we automatically implemented real-time availability for you. Anybody with Tipasa, you also have real-time availability. So that's always important to know. If you don't, then someone at your library would need to send us some information so we can get that set up for you. So what it does is it looks at your local catalog, shelving information, and we use that. It's like a Z3950 lookup. And we, except for when it's WMS, it's not. But we check the shelving and if it's checked out or it's not available for whatever reason, we go ahead and deflect the request. So if someone's borrowing from you, we check it and it will never get into your lending queue if that item is not available. So that's the important part of that. And that's what Amanda this morning was talking about at the public library, is that she's no longer bothered by any of those things that aren't on the shelf. So she might have had to say no 20 times one morning, but now they just don't even come in anymore. So that's a big time saver. Any questions about real-time availability? It always felt to me like something that the system should have had all along.
It's super easy to turn on if yours is turned on. You just fill in that form and we just turn it on.
How do you know?
So
I mean, not you, how do I know?
So you have WMS, so you're good. You have it. Now, it could be that it's not, and even WMS, I think it's pretty good, but like you could, if you had a different ILS and you felt like sometimes it was saying no at the wrong times or letting requests through that should have never gotten through to you, there's some tweaking that they can do to the settings. Like we'll talk to people about what their shelving statuses are and which ones they want to say yes and which ones they want to say no.
So there's no
So
way
there's some
for us to
tweaking.
actually, like, just see what they're currently set to, or is yeah, like Mother May I on this?
You can talk to Tony Melvin.
Are you getting requests for things and then?
Oh, I have no idea.
And they're checked out. Everything turned out is like,
Yeah,
item checked out. If you have a bunch of those, then there's a problem.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't actually know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just
so-
gonna look into that.
Yeah, so the lender reasons for no report is, I think I might have it here. I talk about it later. But
Okay, so it's in the report.
your reasons for no
Gotcha.
report will tell you, and if anything that's deflected by RTA
Mhm.
it will say system checked availability. That's the reason,
Alright.
which it should be system checked, not available, not availability. But if it says that, then that's where RTA has said no to it because it didn't think it was on your shelf. Yeah. So,
So is there, it's not even more of a technical question, but is there a way, like, if a library didn't look at what your holdings were and a request goes through, because I've had a ton of those where, like, I'll have what, 1999, 2001, and they're asking for 2021.
mhm,
Is there a way to do that in OCLC
mhm.
to turn off the current? Or
So that's a lot to do with your knowledge, what the
Yeah.
knowledge base thinks you have. But there's some settings in the knowledge base that default to, if we're not sure, we'll probably let that go through just to make sure. And that's an area that we're working on enhancing, being smarter in that so that we know better exactly what you have, what your holdings are. So there's some KB enhancements coming that are going to help with that. Yeah, so getting the knowledge base holdings as well as just wait for some enhancements. So we'll do a little bit better job at that in the future. Anything else, Mary?
You get a lot of requests for things that you just don't have the holdings for.
right, mostly it's from the subscription, so they
Okay.
see that we have it. And it's usually a popular, like, National Geographic, we only have like, we have an embargo on it, so
Mhm,
they're
yeah.
It's a
asking.
journal subscription.
So,
Yeah, it's mainly journals.
Yeah. so with embargo and then like,
There's a place in the knowledge base to make sure all those things, like, that we know your holdings, the embargo, and then there's another setting for let ILL look at those things. So sometimes
Okay.
that's not turned on.
okay. In my
There may be a
understanding,
setting to.
I think we'd still have to do some work in terms of exact volumes and issues. I think there's some KB enhancements that still need to happen here. But yeah, but the important thing would be to get your date ranges set correctly. Yeah. Make sure those are right. It's a good start. And embargoes are still an issue as far as I understand, yeah. Okay, so this is just to kind of show you like how quickly real-time availability can help. We've been using this example for a long time, but like,
It's a pretty cool example, actually.
so we we.
I love it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just, and you get the response, so this one said no because there was a deflection from that library already set. And this one was that this library had real-time availability and the shelf status was So, and then the third lender, and you know, it went to the third lender in 2 seconds. So that's, yeah, so the more, this is why we talk about it a lot, because the more libraries that have real-time availability set up, the more of them you're gonna hit in your lender string, and it's just gonna automatically go to the next lender. It's not sitting there waiting for a librarian to come in or a staff person and say, well, look it up," and then say, "No, if we don't have it." So it just goes boom, boom.
Like with loans, like I know the system says it's on the shelf, but sometimes I go upstairs and it's not on the shelf, I mean, it's on a. But I don't wanna automatically accept loans, but sometimes I have to say no once I've done a check.
Mhm.
Like, so if they've supplied it in 2 seconds, they didn't check the shelf, like how, right?
You're right, yeah, so,
To me, this sounds like an
I think
article
this
request.
is,
Oh, it might be an okay, that's fine. Okay.
yeah, it is an article.
Yeah, there is no way you can get
Oh,
a
wait.
physical book that fast. You could get an ebook that fast if you have the right to share.
Well, RTA is technically, just for books, so, for loans. But what I think this is when the request got to that library,
And
Okay.
not when they filled it.
Okay.
So it took the system a couple of seconds to do that check. And then it went to this library, and then eventually they supplied it. So we don't have that time difference there, but yeah. So it's a little bit, but this is what your history, this came from the request history. But yeah, that's when it went to the,
So it's applied would not be correct. It's when it moved to the next string for
Yeah.
the print to print the slip, so you can go to, yeah, in my opinion. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's
yeah,
what
this,
is the
this is just when the request moved to that lender.
Yeah,
And then there's a delay between, okay, they had to actually go
to the, yeah.
find it, make sure they had it, and then check supply.
But
So
you
we
can
don't have that.
supply book like that fast.
I'll work on it.
Yeah, I think what we're really trying to show here is kind of how long it sat with each lender, which was what, you know what I mean? Like, so it got to the ultimate supplier in 2 seconds. Right? Instead of like, you know, if they hadn't had that auto deflection, they would have had to look it up. And then if they hadn't had system checked available, if they didn't have RTA, they would have had to look it up. So it, you know, it takes each of those steps probably would have taken 10, 20, 30 minutes at least, you know, if a human had to do that stuff. It could have been 2 days.
3 days. even.
Yeah, 8 days. So. Cool. All right, and then here's happy Brian Miller. Brian Miller's always our very
Everybody knows
happy,
Brian
li-
Miller.
happy librarian. Nicest person in the world. He truly is. So, but they really, Brian, as nice as he is not super easily impressed, I don't think. And so he, like, as soon as they got real-time availability, he reached out. He was like, "Oh my gosh, this is like huge." So, yeah, they didn't have to respond that items were checked out. Went from 30% of their requests down to 5%. So kind of what Amanda was saying this morning, she doesn't have to check any of those things that she knows they're not going to be able to supply. Okay, so no, so we talked about real-time availability. These are just some more practical tips for speeding the system in general. So we talked about this, you know, don't be afraid to turn your supplier status to no if you're going to be out of the office and you don't have a backup. Shorten your days to respond. So I was talking about that earlier. If you have your days to respond set at 4, that request is going to sit there for 4 days until it moves on. So you want to make sure that you find that right balance of how long you want to be able to spend with that request, how long you want it to stay in your queue versus you know, speeding it along and doing that customer service of saying, you know, I'm not gonna be able to fill this, just let it say no, just go ahead and respond no if you don't think you're gonna be able to fill it. And deflections. So again, anything you know you're gonna deflect, whether that's on the collection level or format types, different stuff that you're not going to. So that would be that auto deflection thing that was at the top there. And there's all kinds of different ways you can set up your deflections. Oh, here we go. Types of deflections. So these are some common ones that people set up. So like different types of AV that you may not provide. And when you go in and set this up, there's several different formats that you might want to deflect. This one is age. So if you don't want to circulate new books, you would want to set something up less than 1 year or less than 2 years. And then this goes back to the KB, and I forgot about this when we were talking about that, but not only do you indicate, well, yeah, you have to, so in the KB, you'll say whether the knowledge base, whether you can lend something or not based on your license terms. But then you'll also want to come in here and have a deflection that says, if my license term, if I've said no in the KB, automatically deflect it. So yeah, so you have to actually also set up a deflection for your electronic stuff that you're not licensed to
Yeah.
ILL.
You're giving an informational, we're not allowed to lend it, but then you have to do a deflection to say.
Yes, so if you want, so yes, yes, so that might be also why they're coming in. If you're saying no in the knowledge base, you have to have this also. I forgot this. It's a good thing I'm doing this. Yeah, you have to also have a deflection to say, I want to automatically say no to the things that I've said no in, in the collection. And if you want to review them manually, then you would not want to have this automatic deflection. But if you never want to see those no's, then you'd want this.
So if you could lend a portion of it, you work it here, because sometimes we could lend 50 pages or 100 pages or 30.
I would think you would.
know, like, how do you do that? Was
Yeah, so
that's
you would
very
not
important.
want to have this deflection then.
Okay.
because This would deflect anytime that you've said, I do not have ILL rights in the knowledge base. If you want to review them, you would not want those. Yeah,
Okay, I'm going to do that.
yeah.
Very
Yeah.
interesting.
And it depends your philosophy,
Yeah,
how many. Yeah. So.
Like the collection that we didn't want to have, we'd be able to mark it on there.
Mhm.
Like
Yes.
serves.
Yes, yes. There's another section in the policies directory. I'm not showing here, but there's a collections tab. You can define those collections and then you can say, we don't lend from there. And I believe you can set up a deflection for whole collections. I'm not sure if you do it here, or if you have to do it at the LHR level, which is, there's two ways to do deflections. You can deflect in your LHRs too. There you can say they're not lendable. Yeah. So you may want to consult someone else better than me, but there are ways to do it.
And it's easy. If
Yeah.
you want, there is a specificity. Our catalog hosts other institutions, and that was a bit hard, and Tony helped me with that.
Was that in your holdings where you did it, or? Yeah.
It was showing, it was coming, I was getting requests from another institution that I cannot lend because they're not mine. And I guess I didn't set it up right, but you have to go a little bit deeper in the things, but in your case, of course, you will be able to do it.
Yes. So as I always say, don't hesitate to reach out to OCLC support or to me directly. You'll have my email address here with these slides. Okay, saying yes quickly. This is where we get into automations. So do we need to take like a little stretch break.
You need to say that.
I'm like, oh, you know, when we were, if we were gonna have a bunch of people upstairs, I was gonna be like stretch break, and then I had all these like desk exercises I was gonna do. Like, okay, everybody, like stretch your so. So this is the stuff that I actually personally love. So I don't know. There's what are the raise up on your? You can do it in your chair. But yeah, feel free to move around or go get some water or take a little quick break. But this is the part that I get really excited about because of being able to get those requests for your patrons out to lenders. And there's a lot of building blocks with automations. So we've talked a little bit about this today. It depends on your custom holdings, your constant data. That's a lot of it. Real-time availability helps, but the automated request manager is kind of where everything comes together. So what you want to, if you're gonna, I always want to challenge everyone to think about what are some of those really basic requests that you hate touching, that you're like, why am I doing this today? I should be doing something more valuable. So if it's, I know you guys are all academic institutions, but I'll show a couple of examples later of what some typical ones are. But you know, this is lending. I'm sorry, I like got confused here. So this is on the lending side. Lending automation. Say yes quickly. Okay, yes. So this is our lending automation, which is newer. So if you have Tipasa, you can take full advantage of this. So I'm sorry what I was saying earlier. It's going down the borrowing path. The lending side, you can say yes more quickly. So we have some ways that you can check who the request is coming from. Is it a copy or a loan? What's the format? And then if you have Tipasa, we have some functionality that helps libraries with multiple branches. I wasn't actually going to talk about this, so we'll see. This is, so some of the stuff that you can do with lending automation is you can do apply some constant data automatically. So it won't automatically say yes for you. The system won't say yes for you on the lending side, but it will apply the appropriate constant data. So if you tell it which constant data to add for particular situations, it just saves you time, and it can be more accurate than you applying it yourself. And if you have Tipasa, there's an opportunity to apply a tag to the request, and that's helpful going back to if you have multiple branches, say, and you have different campus libraries perhaps, and somebody and you want that campus to check and see if they have the item on the shelf, you can tag it, and then they look for all of the requests that have that tag on it. So it's a Tipasa thing. If you don't have multiple campuses, it's probably not a big deal. There's probably other reasons that you might want to attach a tag to a lending request, but this is kind of one of the key reasons. Okay, lending automations. You can have the system automatically, like this would be your constant data. So you can set it up so that it will automatically mark certain, like a group of lenders. So if you have a local group that you charge $10 for, or you can say everybody except the people in my tri-state group. So say you lend a tri-state for free, but you want to charge everyone else $10. These are things that you can do so that the system automatically applies your constant data to charge $10. That's an example. Or yeah, or like your loan period. That's something else that you can vary with your constant data depending on the format. So this is, I don't know why I'm talking about lending automation before borrowing automation because I find this, I mean, we developed borrowing automation much earlier, and that's what actually I think is like the really big time saver. Lending automation is also a time saver, but it's a little bit, I would say this is a little bit more advanced topic. So I don't know, does anybody kind of see any applications at their library that you would want to like have the and have you tinkered with it at all or?
I haven't tinkered with lending automations, but I think I watched a webinar recently on it, from OCLC, and I am interested to start tinkering with it.
I like it from the standpoint of it's fat, it should speed things along and its accuracy. So
Yeah,
the fact for me, anytime that the system is applying something based on rules that you set up, it's just going to be more systematic than a human sitting there going, oh, which one am I supposed to apply? And you get tired by the end of the day. You sometimes apply the wrong one, you know. So I'm always a fan for again, automating where it makes sense. So all right, let's get through this one. These are more complex examples. These are all in our documentation. So I just stole these screenshots from the doc. So if you want to look at these later, you can. These are really advanced automations. Apply specific loan periods for AV. Charge some libraries $20 and all other libraries $0, but don't charge for copies. So it's just an example of kind of to show like a power, what a power user might want to set up. Okay. So, and then, so lending automation is a tip to get to yes faster. Also, you'll want to, if you have ILLiad, you work with Atlas to make sure that your routing rules, are working for you, doing the things that you want. I'm not as familiar with lending routing rules as I am with borrowing routing rules, but you probably have some lending routing rules as well.
But they're simpler than our borrowing crafting rules, let's put it that way.
I think that, I mean,
It does probably
that's
valid for every library.
everybody. Yeah, I think so. And
And we
then
do exactly that, check twice. a
yes,
day.
and that is a big thing. When people ask us about, well, how can I work towards getting in the express program? Like, you know, just making sure that you're checking your queues is the biggest thing. So anybody here feel like your volume is really low and you don't need to be checking, or you check your queue and there's nothing there? Does anybody have that lowest low level? If you are in that situation, or you know somebody in that situation, there are alerts that you can set up to let you know when a request comes in. So really low volume libraries, they
Wow.
I'm laughing because I set that up by accident when I started, and we're not a low lending.
Yeah. So it's great for like really low lenders, but like, yeah, it would be super annoying if you get a lot of lending. Yeah, it's an email alert.
Can I set it? Students?
Wow. You can actually, yes.
Love that.
Yes, because, well, not text, but email. Yeah, so you put in the email address that you want the alert to go to. So yeah, it can alert like 5 people at the library if you want it to.
On my nerves, I'm just gonna set it up so it just constantly do that.
So let's see. All right. So we got like 10 minutes left. And if you guys, yeah, let's see. What do we want to talk about? I really want to talk about borrowing automation, I think. So I think that would be probably the best use of our time for the last few minutes. So we talked about Express. If anybody has questions about Express, how to get into Express, like let me know. I think it's a little confusing. So to qualify to be part of that Express Libraries group, your turnaround times need to get down to 18 hours on average. So a lot of times people will ask, well, I'm closed on the weekend, or, you know, it's on average. So people that you're starting to get blinded as well. So yeah, but then among that group, when you look at the requests that express libraries are providing to other express libraries, the average is actually 10 hours. So it's really pretty quick.
So if you turn your hours, like you're not there on the weekends, tell the system you're not, did it count those times?
It does count those times.
Does.
Yeah, so you don't need to go non-supplier on the weekend. It's just like if you're turning it around, like say a normal request is turned around in 10 hours, but your average is under 18. Like, yeah. So yeah, you don't need to play tricks with it. But a lot of people will qualify for the program. So they're at 16 hours, say, and they go, oh, I don't want to be a member because I don't want to have like I'm close on the weekends. So it doesn't matter. You're already doing 16 hours average. So that's kind of what I always have to kind of explain to people. We put on like, we put 18 hours on average. It's not every single request doesn't have to turn around in 18 hours. It's just on average. You know, if you're sitting there at your desk, you're turning it around in 1 hour, but then the one that came in on the weekend is obviously not 1 hour. So yeah, and included with your subscription. That's the important thing. You don't need to pay to be a member of that. And we all saw Ashley this morning. She's our very happiest Express person. So, and she showed her her updated numbers. This is an old quote. So how fast some of their requests get addressed. Okay. So standard borrowing requests. This is the part I really wanted to get to. So why do we want to do it? Get stuff for your patrons as fast as possible. And for those of you with Tipasa or ILLiad, you can also, so you can configure stuff. So anybody can configure stuff to go out to lenders automatically, following the rules that you set up. So I always try to alleviate concerns from people that the system is going to send out things that you don't want sent out. It's only going to do it for the things that you tell it to do it for. And then if you have Tipasa or ILLiad, you can set up proven senders so that when that item comes back from the lender, it automatically gets sent to your patron. So you can, in theory, never touch that item. It goes out to lenders, comes back as a proven sender request. So, and Tipasa was recently, ILLiad's always had this. Tipasa was recently enhanced that you can have every lender be part of proven senders. So I think they call it something lenders and ILLiad. Proven senders and not important. So that's kind of what we're working towards. Okay, so as part of automation, and this is the part that I get really excited about, is the smart lender strings. So as a person, we can have some idea as to who our best lenders are, who tends to turn things around faster. But you want to try to use statistics or let the system use its statistics to make the best decisions. So Ashley talked about how she took her OCLC statistics and looked for lenders that had fill rates of 70% or higher. So she was able to take those stats and find those best lenders. She also looked at their turnaround times, like who turns them around faster. And I think she just has one big group of like best lenders. You could be more granular and like, these are my best lenders and these are my pretty good lenders, right? You could get a little bit more granular, but that's the custom holdings part right here. And that's the part that you really control. So you say, I want to go to all of these people first, and then these people, and then these people. If you're part of the Express program, you want to put the Express group somewhere in that path. If you're in all this, you want to put those groups in. You want to put like your reciprocal groups for your region. But you'll know the right order to put those groups in. Who am I going to ask first? And who am I going to ask next? And then when it gets to the bottom of the path, it gives up and says, I don't know who to go to. But what the smart lender strings also do is they're able to check for the deflections. So if you're familiar, like your lender string can only have 15 symbols in it. So when it checks deflections, it doesn't even put that in your lender string because it's been deflected. So it's not hogging up, the libraries with deflections aren't hogging up one of those 15 spots. It's gonna check the electronic licenses that we talked about here today, your serial holdings, and your custom pets, and it's gonna order all of those. It's gonna say, okay, these many people in your custom holdings, your top custom holdings group are they still qualified after all of these things? And then it's gonna look at their average turnaround time. And it's gonna load level so it doesn't send all the requests to the same really good library. So all of those things that smart lender string can factor in there. And we don't even as humans like have access to like these things, right? Because I mean, you could go and look at their turnaround time, but you're not gonna do that for every single lender.
No way, I've never done
Yeah,
that.
and then the load leveling, you have no idea like how busy a particular library might be, how many things are in their queue right now. So that's like the really cool part. We are, I will say to watch upcoming webinars, we are going to be adding some more factors to this to make those smart lender strings even smarter. So that's my little teaser to come to product insights and other OCLC webinars. And you can learn all about this at that short URL, SF Get Started. We had that in this morning's presentation as well. Okay, so basic ones. With public libraries, we would say like automate everything that's like a really common book that's more than 2 years old and just let it go out. You know, and it's only going to go out if there's an OCLC number or something that the system can match on ISBN or ISSN. For academic libraries, we always say like, again, if the thing has come in through your Tipasa form or your ILLiad form, and it's come from a discovery system, it probably has an OCLC number on it and or a ISSN. And that's gonna be what lets the system match and find that item and then go check all the holdings and all the e-license stuff and all of the things, right? So it all starts with, you know, starting in discovery, telling us which custom holdings group, the path that we're supposed to be looking at, and building that smart lender string with all the data that it can collate. And then the other thing, we didn't talk a lot about constant data, but this is where you would say, apply, you know, this is where the thing needs to get to be sent, or in the terms of the thing. So I don't want to pay for it, but if you know, or I will pay up to $10, but please use IFM. That's all the stuff that would be in your constant data. So those are just a couple. Again, I stole these from the documentation. Here's some tips for getting free stuff. The Elvis group we talked about. If you, a lot of times libraries are liking to borrow things for entire academic semesters. So we have groups of libraries that are 12 weeks or more. And we recently, if you need to get AB materials, we have a group of libraries that supply AB materials for free. eBook isn't necessarily free, I don't think, but if you can always try them for ebooks.
But it works to get supplied the whole entirely if they have it. Their license is a lot, it's mostly the Virginia library that so you get that, and you get Springer would allow you to download some of the collections and something for us. And then a few other publishers. So you basically get, your user get, in our case, through OVC in your system, that would be through article exchange, your user will get it download it. Yeah. So use that and you can set it up and go there. I use it.
Do they usually charge for them? Or sometimes depends.
I don't monitor charges, nobody has told me. That's why I get in trouble.
That's right, that's right.
But I
So
will
yeah,
probably have to
but like we were talking about earlier with your journal subscription, it's like you, or your collections, you have to ask, right? And so some institutions, when they've bought ebooks or bought licenses for ebooks, they've negotiated in that they're allowed to ILL those. Again, you have to get your e-resources people to get that into their practice to ask for that for interlibrary loans. So
I get a like pro class to. I know you have to have like VRN free, but I guess you also have to sign a contract that says that you're able to do IM.
right, you need like a clause in your in your contract, and some publishers will write that in, but if you don't ask, they won't, they never will. So yeah. Well, thank you so much. I know we're out of time. I didn't get through everything as I expected, but hopefully everybody got a few tips. Take your sheets home. Do go if there's any particular area that you want to work on at your library. Go get the link to the documentation, read through it. I mean, really, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Or if you, after the conference, you flip through the rest of the slides and there was a topic we didn't get to, just, yeah, let me know. I'll be happy to talk with you. So. Thanks.
And let me say more than the islands.
I just like flipped it shut like it was my own life, my own guy. I wonder if it turned into.
Have this. Oh.